Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Claire. I'm 38 years old, and right now, I'm sitting alone in our apartment, the kind of silence that presses heavy on my chest. There's this secret I've been carrying, one that's been eating me alive, and maybe talking about it aloud will make it a little less suffocating. We agreed to open our marriage, a choice that sounded brave, even exciting at first. But now? Now, it feels like I'm standing outside the life we built, watching it crumble, piece by fragile piece. I remember how it used to be. When I first met Mark, there was this magnetic pull between us, like a current you couldn't fight. Our kisses were electric, our nights a mix of laughter and soft touches that made me feel seen, desired, alive. We were safe. Sexy. Invincible. He held me like I was the only thing that mattered, like the world could fall away and we'd still have each other. But slowly, that warmth began to fade. I'd reach for him, and he'd flinch, almost like I was asking too much. Cuddling that once felt like a promise turned cold and mechanical, his arms tight, but not around me, more like holding me hostage. And the kisses, those subtle shifts that felt off, like the spark was still there but flickering out. The tension settled between us, quiet but heavy. I started to lose myself in it, in the space that grew wider every day. I convinced myself this was just a phase, that love sometimes changes shape, but deep down, I knew something was slipping away. I realized it in a moment that still stings. It was our anniversary, an evening that should have felt sacred. Instead, I watched Mark brush past me, brushing off my attempt to hold his hand. His eyes were distant, distracted. And then he told me he was spending the night with a 25-year-old law student. Not a secret anymore, but out in the open, like it was just another fact. That's when I knew. Something fundamental had shifted. And I didn't know if I was ready to face what it meant. Here's the next part, deepening the emotional tension and misunderstanding between Claire and Mark. I chose to make Mark a doctor to ground their dynamic in a high-stress, caregiving profession that contrasts with Claire's emotional needs. Mark's a doctor. Not the kind you see in movies, no heroic rescues or grand gestures. He's the kind of doctor who comes home exhausted, shoulders tense like he's carrying the weight of the world in his spine. I see him try to switch off the day's chaos the moment he walks through the door, but sometimes it's like he can't quite leave it behind. Last night was like so many others. I sat on the couch, the low hum of the city outside filtering through the window. Mark slipped in quietly, peeled off his coat, and without a word, sat beside me. His hand found mine, firm and gentle, his version of I love you after a long day. But I flinched. Not because he was too rough, but because it felt like a bandage on a wound I didn't know how to explain. His touch was there, yes, but not for me. It was a reflex, a routine, something meant to fill the space between us, but never quite reaching my heart. I wanted to tell him that I needed more than a hand squeezed in passing. That I needed to be seen, not just physically, but truly seen. I wanted him to ask how I was feeling, to hold me like I mattered beyond just the surface. But the words stuck in my throat. How do you explain to the person you love that their love feels like a salve, but the wound underneath is still raw? How do you say, I need you to feel my loneliness before I can feel your touch? So I said nothing. I let the silence grow between us, a space heavier than any argument. I wanted to lean into him, but instead, I pulled away, retreating into myself. And in that quiet retreat, the misunderstanding grew, two people reaching for connection but missing each other completely. It was late, too late to be having this conversation, but neither of us could sleep. Mark came over to the couch where I was curled up, the glow of the city lights casting soft shadows across his face. He reached out, brushing a stray hair behind my ear. You okay? He asked quietly, his voice low and steady like it always was when he wanted to mean something without forcing it. I nodded, but inside, my heart was twisting in knots. Then he tried to pull me closer, wrapping his arms around me like he used to. I felt the familiar pressure of his hand sliding down to my lower back, then, suddenly, his fingers gave a quick, light slap against my hip. It should have felt playful, familiar. Instead, it jolted me, and I pulled away just enough to catch myself. He looked at me, confused. "Hey. What's wrong?" I opened my mouth to answer but only managed, "Nothing." The kiss that followed was another thing altogether. He leaned in, soft and sure, but it felt like I was pressing against a wall of glass. The warmth I remembered wasn't there. My lips met his, but inside, I felt empty, like I was mouthing the words to a song I no longer knew. Afterwards, I stared at the ceiling, tracing invisible patterns on the worn-out paint. Why does everything have to turn into sex? I wondered, the frustration and sadness knotting tight in my chest. I wanted to want it, the closeness, the affection, but all I felt was a growing distance I didn't know how to cross. Here's a scene where Claire's frustration finally bursts out, tied emotionally to the open marriage and the anniversary from the title, followed by her self-reflection. We were supposed to celebrate our anniversary dinner, something simple, just the two of us. Mark had made a reservation at that little Italian place I like, candles flickering softly on the table, the kind of setting that once felt like magic between us. But the night cracked open before it even began. He was distracted, checking his phone more than once, and when I tried to talk, really talk, about how I was feeling, about the emptiness creeping between us, he shut down. Said I was overthinking things, that we'd agreed on this path together. I felt something snap inside me. "I'm not okay with this," I blurted, voice cracking, tears burning behind my eyes. "You're spending our anniversary with her. A 25-year-old law student. And you don't even see how hard this is for me." The words hung in the air like shards. Mark's fork froze midair. His face went blank, like he didn't know where to look. "Claire. I'm trying to be honest with you. This isn't easy for me either." But his words felt like a shield, not a bridge. I pushed back the tears, shaking with frustration. "Trying isn't enough. I need you. Not just your honesty, but you, all of you. And I don't know if you can give me that anymore." He didn't say anything. The silence between us was thick, louder than any argument. Later, alone in our apartment, I curled up on the edge of the bed, guilt crashing over me like a wave. Had I been too harsh? Too desperate? I hated that I lashed out. I hated that I felt this raw, exposed ache inside me. But mostly, I hated the growing question I couldn't silence: what if opening our marriage wasn't about freedom, but about losing each other? Here's the continuation, showing the distance growing between Claire and Mark, with both feeling their own pain. It ends on her conflicted decision point. Days passed like slow-moving shadows. The apartment that once felt alive with our shared energy now felt hollow, like we were two strangers occupying the same space but moving through different worlds. I watched Mark from across the room more times than I can count. His shoulders slumped a little more each day, eyes distant behind tired lids. He stopped sharing stories about his work, stopped trying to catch my gaze the way he used to. There was a sadness in him that wasn't anger or resentment, just quiet, deep weariness. I missed him fiercely. The man who used to hold me like I was the center of his universe, who kissed me as if I was a secret he never wanted to share. But I didn't know how to reach him anymore. Every time I tried, my words felt heavy, awkward, like I was pushing against a wall that didn't want to move. And the guilt, oh, the guilt. I could feel it like a weight in my chest every time I saw him pull back, every time his silence answered where warmth used to be. I wondered if I had broken something beyond repair, if my anger and confusion had driven a wedge too deep. Still, somewhere beneath it all, a stubborn hope flickered. Maybe we could find our way back, if I could find the courage to try again. Or maybe it was time to let go. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tangled in the sheets, heart pounding with a question I wasn't sure I could answer yet. Do I fight for us? Or do I walk away? Here's a bittersweet conclusion where Claire realizes the love has cooled, but with a tender moment that holds all the complexity of their shared past. That night, Mark fell asleep on the couch. I found him there hours later, curled up beneath the throw blanket, his face softened in rest. The quiet rhythm of his breathing felt like a fragile thread tying us together, even as everything else seemed to be unraveling. I sat beside him, my hand hovering for a moment before I gently laid it on his shoulder. He stirred, eyes fluttering open, meeting mine with that familiar, tired look. Without a word, I leaned down and kissed his forehead, a soft, careful gesture that carried all the love and sorrow I couldn't say aloud. For a moment, the distance between us shrank, but when I pulled back, it was clear. The warmth was a fading ember, no longer the blazing fire it once was. I realized then that sometimes love doesn't die with a bang, it cools slowly, quietly, until all that's left is the memory of what was. We'd chosen this path together, opening our marriage in search of freedom. But freedom came at a cost I hadn't fully understood. His heart had drifted somewhere I couldn't follow, and maybe mine was doing the same. I didn't know what the future held, if we'd heal, or if this was the beginning of goodbye. But in that moment, with his head resting just inches from mine, I allowed myself to mourn what we lost and to hold on, however lightly, to the hope that healing might still find us. If you asked me what I've learned through all of this, through the ache, the silence, the tangled mess of love and loss, I'd say this: relationships aren't just about holding on. They're about knowing when to hold on tighter, and when to let go with grace. I used to believe desire was something simple, something physical, easy to name. But desire is messy. It's emotional intimacy, trust, the unspoken moments where you feel truly seen and safe. It's the courage to be vulnerable, even when it scares you. Mark and I, whether we stay together or walk separate paths, I carry with me the truth that love isn't always enough. Sometimes, love needs care. It needs space to breathe, to grow, or sometimes, to quietly fade away. I don't have all the answers. But I do know this: I'm learning to listen to myself again. To honor what I need, even when it's hard. And maybe that's the most real kind of love there is, the love we give ourselves. So if you're watching this, feeling lost or broken or unsure, remember this: you deserve to be seen. To be wanted, not just for your body, but for all the parts of you that make you who you are. And if someone can't see that, then maybe it's time to find someone who will. Because the hardest part of love isn't holding on. It's knowing when to let go, and still keep your heart open.